Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literary Tales. I'm your host, Paul Krause, and in this episode, we explore the background of Jane Austen to understand her literature, and then look at her great work, and perhaps her most famous work, Sense and Sensibility. Jane Austen's heroines follow the spirit of theology laid forth in Christianity. All of her heroines begin their tales atomized and alone. None are married, none are in a relationship of love. Some have been unmarried for a very long time. Others are lovesick, desiring love at any cost, even to the point of bringing misery unto themselves and others. Others yet think themselves impervious to love, immune to Cupid's arrow, capable of living a life alone without others. All of Jane Austen's heroines exist, therefore, in the world after the fall, as it were. Austen's many heroines all experience transformation and closure through the course of their respective stories and story arcs. Change-resisting Highbury, contra Margaret Drabble, does not win out at all. In fact, change is the great metamorphic spirit that defines Austen's novels. Change through love, transformation, and metamorphosis through love. Each of our heroines must come to this metamorphic change through love. The errors of their ways must be exposed, shattered, but ultimately redeemed. Unlike the hyper-romantics, who celebrated destruction and death as the highest manifestation of romantic love, Austen allows destruction through romantic love, through romantic sensibility, but then digs out of the rubble to rebuild. Destruction and death isn't how Austen ends her works, like many of the hyper-romantics do. Life through love is the proper ending for Austen, precisely because love triumphs. And anyone familiar with the intimacies of the theology of Christianity should immediately begin to see how that theology implicitly informs Jane Austen's great works. C.S. Lewis, that other great English writer, famously said that lovers see each other face to face, eye to eye. Friends, by contrast, stand side by side. Lovers, however, see each other's gaze. They peer into the eyes of their lover and enter the seat of the lover's soul through the highway of the eyes. Marianne is a romantic sentimentalist. Her concern for Elinor isn't that Edward Ferrars doesn't love her per se. It is that Edward doesn't take an enthusiastic, passionate, erotic interest in Elinor's artistic talents. A more loving man, a more passionate man, would be gawking over her talents, the youthful and inexperienced Marianne lambasts. Marianne's conception of love is nothing but pure emotion, pure sentimentality. Thus, she is the character who represents romantic sensibility. Marianne's conception is also that of the hyper-romantics. It isn't surprising, then, that she is swept away by the dashing eroticism of John Willoughby. But Marianne is never truly face-to-face with him, with her supposed knight in shining armor. While Willoughby rescues her from the side of the road, having sprained her ankle on a walk, their burning romantic hearts are not sealed through that face-to-face encounter that C.S. Lewis talks about, but through an act of intentional seduction. Seduction from behind. John Willoughby soothes Marianne from behind as she rests on a couch, and she cuts off a lock of her hair to give to him as a memento of their supposed love. Their romantic encounters are defined by impetuous action and emotion. Then Willoughby, just as quickly as he rapturously entered Marianne's life, leaves. From back-body seduction to letter writing, Marianne convinces herself that she is in love with Willoughby and he her, despite an overcoming of sorrow upon his sudden departure. She cries and cries and cries. They saw nothing of Marianne till dinner time, Austen writes, when she entered the room and took her place at the table without saying a word. Her eyes were wet, red, and swollen. It seemed as if her tears were even then restrained with difficulty. She avoided the looks of them all, could neither eat nor speak, and after some time, on her mother's silently pressing hand, with tender compassion, her small degree of fortitude was quite overcome. She burst into tears and left the room. Thus you see the hyper-romanticism of Marianne. Marianne soothes herself and indulges in a new phantasmagoric romanticism through her many letters to Willoughby. Again, he is neither beside her as a friend or face to face with her as a lover, and Marianne uses her emotional might and power to convince herself that they are in love together. When she has a face-to-face encounter with him in London, one day while out for a walk, he spurns her in her face. Willoughby is, of course, flirting with another woman. Dejected, Marianne attempts to coax Elinor into grabbing Willoughby's attention for her, to rekindle that spark of romance, eroticism, and love. Marianne's sentimental romanticism nearly kills her as you read throughout the novel. When Willoughby returns her locket of hair, admitting to just playful flirting and nothing more, Marianne is heartbroken. She wallows in her own tears, and her health becomes sickly. She comes to the point of death. Elinor, who represents good sense, romantic sense, in contrast to Marianne's sentimentalism, helps heal her. Elinor is both beside her and talks to her, face to face, as loving sisters do. Elinor is the great heroine of the work. She is the one who carries Marianne's crosses. She is the one that helps Marianne through her difficult times. She is the one that gives Marianne the good sense about what love actually is. Marianne eventually reforms her sentimentalist ways and embraces the good sense of her sister in marrying Colonel Brandon, and enjoys her life as a result of this reformation, this metamorphosis away from erotic romanticism, which brought her to the point of death, to realizing that love is sacrifice and perseverance for another. The sacrifice and perseverance that Elinor always showed her, the sacrifice and the perseverance that Colonel Brandon afforded her, gave to her as he waited and waited and waited all that time, through all the maelstrom, the chaos, the conflict, all the confusion. Colonel Brandon was always there, visible from the start. Colonel Brandon loves Marianne through that sacrifice and perseverance from the first romantic moment he sees her. He is not enraptured by her body or hair, but her brilliant and shining face. She has a radiance that Colonel Brandon sees, but Marianne, still the impetuous blind youth she is, cannot see past Colonel Brandon's older age. But through the help of Elinor, she eventually reforms her ways, as mentioned, and marries Colonel Brandon. Love transforms Marianne, and it unites Marianne and Colonel Brandon. It also brings Elinor and Edward together, and through the triumph of love in bringing souls together in marriage, we see the ending in blessed felicity, happiness, joy, love, the family. It is restoration, the coming together of two made one in love. But through Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, we also see what the true meaning of love is, according to Jane Austen. It isn't hyper-romantic sensualism or sentimentalism. It is the good sense, the sense and understanding that love is about sacrifice and perseverance for the one you love.